We go back to the word that you use that I think is key, which is confusion.
The entire Jeffrey Epstein saga, which continues. That has even Fox News worried, as well as a number of MAGA leaders like Steve Bannon.
Is MAGA losing juice? Is it losing momentum? And if it is, can it be regained?
I don't know, given the hyperpolarization that we have today, that the era of the big bounce still exists. But it's these little declines that over a period of months could produce seismic shifts. Good morning. It's July 14th, Bastille Day, Monday morning, and welcome to another edition of Real Polling in Real Time with Zogby. And as always, I'm John Zogby, and I'm here with my son and the managing partner of John Zogby Strategies, Jeremy Zogby. Hello again. Hi.
Hey, Dad, you are a master of history, so I want to ask you, other than Bastille Day, what else is today?
I don't know.
Orangemen Day, which celebrates the Glorious Revolution in 1688.
Oh, I didn't know they were on the same day. Certainly know about the Orange Revolution, though.
Yep.
And the booting out of James II, right?
Yep. So somewhere between a bloody revolution and a bloodless revolution, here we are in 2025.
And we're asking a key question today. Are we starting to see the MAGA movement unravel? I'm going to say that first and foremost, there is no polling evidence that would give credence to that question. What there is, however, is criticism among MAGA stars and MAGA rank and file over a number of key issues that are hitting all at once. In no special order, there's the big, beautiful budget, which budget hawks among MAGA folks are saying is not beautiful at all. It's not what they voted for, not what they promised. Not only does it not deal with the national debt and the budget deficit, but it raises both considerably. There are people that are disgusted about that. Secondly, of course, is the entire Jeffrey Epstein saga, which continues. The president ran for re-election by saying once and for all, the client list and the files would be open to the public. The attorney general, who had been the attorney general of Florida, Pam Bondi, had promised a full and complete release. And then there was a 180-degree turn this past week. MAGA folks were hoping that it was going to nail some Democratic stars, like Bill Clinton, for example, and Senator George Mitchell and Alan Dershowitz, Bill Gates, and so on. But now the word is from the Attorney General's office, there is no client list and not releasing the file. That has even Fox News worried, as well as a number of MAGA leaders like Steve Bannon, close confidant of the president. We continue. The president said something last week that was stunning. He said that, of course, there's going to be some amnesty for farm workers who are here without papers, here illegally. He said, because, of course, we don't want to punish good, productive people, and we don't want to punish growers as well. But within minutes, his Secretary of Agriculture contradicted him and said there will be no amnesty for anyone. And so let's stop it there. There are others, but let's stop there, those three big ones, and suggest that those, at the very least, reveal a turnabout of promises, as well as perhaps, if you're a critic of the president, some hypocrisy, but at the very least, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, confusion about what's this president doing and what's he all about, and is he playing with his MAGA movement or not? But again, while that would suggest a beginning of an unraveling of the movement, again, we don't see any evidence in the polling, at least yet. What do you think?
Well, we have to add three in there, and I won't elaborate too much on them. But of course, there was the Ukraine 180
Yes.
that was also last week, more or less. And then another one, and actually the next two are more or less interrelated, it is Iran. You know, there was the promise to stop forever wars, to not get involved in additional wars. Now, perhaps to the president's credit, it was a bold move. We still don't really know exactly what went on. Were these facilities really actively producing, trying to produce nuclear weapons, or had a program for nuclear enrichment? Or was this one of those things where, you know, Trump had his team pinpoint areas that were less active or actually had been abandoned, and then bombed them and sold the public on, hey, we took them out, to send the signal to Iran that, hey, we needed to do something to look tough, but we're not willing to take it to World War III. Well, all we know is that it didn't go to over the cliff that like many were fearing. And so the issue, though, is this. What does that do to Iran? Does that bring Iran even closer to Russia and China? I'm sure it does. Does it reveal a weakness that Iran has the upper hand because they can close the Strait of Hormuz, and they started to do that? And then within 48 hours, it looked like there was a ceasefire, or at least a temporary ceasefire. Is this emboldening Iran and what we talk about, a greater movement and momentum towards a multipolar world and a weakening Western NATO world? And then also there's this third issue of what is up with the United States and Israel. And actually, some think that ties into Epstein. It obviously ties into Iran. I don't know. But what I just laid out there is utterly complex, and then combine it with what you laid out with, and we go back to the word that you used that I think is key, which is confusion among voters. So the question becomes, what will the polls show from this pivotal and very key last week that on the surface looks like maybe the presidency is starting to lose momentum, juice, and maybe MAGA is starting to lose momentum and juice? So I have some numbers, which we already shared the last time. And we went over from our last poll on June 25th, the key cohorts, bellwether groups and key cohorts, and how they rated the president. And so what I'm going to do is show how before this very action-packed week, we already started to see slippage, serious slippage among the president. And I'm going to try and see what's the direction. Now, even though we don't have data just yet, maybe we can extrapolate or see a trend line. And so I just want to go over 3 or 4 groups. We saw a 2-point slippage among veterans. Veterans, of course, by and large, are with Trump. 2-point shedding in approval rating from May to June among veterans. Another very key group, where, as I've talked about before, are those ages 25 to 34. And I did an entire podcast focusing in on them and how they were surprisingly very high on Trump. And from May to the late May to last June, we saw the approval rating of the president among them drop 3 points. Okay. And then the last group, which I think is going to be, I still think is perhaps the most key, voting cohort for Trump in determining whether he has long-term success or short-term success are the new media consumers. Now, understand who these folks are. They place their trust in social media, especially platforms like X, and they place their trust in podcasts, and especially from those who are like Joe Rogan and that crowd. People, podcasters who are not afraid to do deep dives into topics that are taboo and that are often not covered in the legacy media, the national media, and even local media. And among the new media consumers, we saw a 2 percentage point drop in approval rating. Now, that was June 25th. So the point is, with all of this that has gone on, especially the story with the Epstein files, remember, the new media consumers are going to be highly driven by those kind of stories. It's why they go to social media and why they go to podcasts to figure out what is true, what is not true, and what's swept under the carpet. And the Epstein story is probably the granddaddy of them all in trying to figure out what is really going on. So what I want to know the next time that we launch our poll is among those three groups that I just listed, veterans, those ages 25 to 34, and particularly the new media consumers, all of these events, especially the story of Epstein, and, oh, there's a lot there, and then a 180, no, there's nothing there, move on. It goes back to your question. Is MAGA losing juice? Is it losing momentum? And if it is, can it be regained?
I think you summed it up perfectly. I'm glad you added those additional issues because there are 6 or 7. In terms of where we go from here, this is why we're polling monthly. Those declines that you mentioned among key groups, we put in the category of small, 2 points, 3 points, but like the old children's game, made you look. Whenever you see something, especially something that had been rock solid, numbers that have been rock solid, and you start to see a little bit of decline, then you've got to look closely, track it, and see if that decline continues. 2 or 3 more points, 2 or 3 more points the month after that, and now what you have is a slide. Interestingly, I go back to the days where events could produce big bounces or big free falls. We certainly saw that before I was professionally polling, say, with Jimmy Carter, with George H.W. Bush, numbers plummeted. I don't know, given the hyperpolarization that we have today, that the era of the big bounce still exists. But it's these little declines that over a period of months could produce seismic shifts. We're going to be looking at them. I'm done. I think I've said what I need to say.
Yeah, I'll just recap that. You're right. Those are small, but in an era of competitive politics and hyperpolarized politics and literally elections that can come down to a swing county or a swing state, it's something to keep your eye on. But the biggest point is this. If we saw that in late June and we did not have such an action-packed week like we saw last week, it begs the question, where do those three groups fall? Are veterans angry about the change in policy, at least the change in verbal policy in support for Ukraine? Are they angry about what happened with Iran, or are they satisfied? And then the new media consumers, are they just going to give up because much of them put a lot of trust and high hopes in knowing what is the story behind arguably the most treacherous story of the last 10, 15, 20 years, that is Epstein. I think, I won't predict but I could see where those numbers to fall off could be even larger.
They could be. What makes this curious, and this is my final point, is that Los Angeles is an armed camp, not the entire city, but that few block area, around City Hall and the Hall of Justice. At the same time, the genocide, and it is genocide that's taking place in Gaza, is beyond stunning. The reports of dozens of people, even over 100 people daily now being shot, sadly, like fish in a barrel, children and women, and that continues. But the summer is a time when a president normally tries to lay low and not generate controversy or allow events to generate controversy, because folks have other things on their mind in June and July and August. It makes it even more curious that the president would do this turnabout on Jeffrey Epstein, because that's in the news, and that's the kind of sensational news that people pay attention to no matter what season.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to my word, although I'm tempted to do an additional recap, but I'm going to stick to my word that was my final.
Okay, have a good week.
Yeah, you too, and I'll talk to you very shortly.
Yeah, very shortly. Bye-bye.